So with DA here, you have everybody but T-Sound, right?
Yeah, yep, pretty much.
How's
pretty
T's
much. T's is actually doing pretty good. He's starting to get on the court. It's a slow grind though. He isn't working out on the court yet hard, but it's just good to see him in two shoes, to be honest with you, and walking around. So he's starting to do some standstill shooting, but no moving really.
After having so much time off last week, is it kind of the similar things you're working on this week? Are there different topics you're trying to address?
No, a little different this week. We've had some slippage in a couple areas that I think it's always good to have some practice time. So yeah, we're working on a couple different things this week.
Talk about what those areas were that you had slippage in.
I feel like our ball pressure has been down and our crashing has been down. Those are two things that's kind of who we are, It's just so crazy because our offense has been so poor most of the way, but the last few games our offense has gotten so much better, but our defense goes down. So just balancing it out a little bit.
With the offense, outside of playing selfless and sharing the ball, what are some specific things you want to see with execution over the next few weeks to keep trying to turn a corner?
Well, I think, obviously, I always think that, when we can get stops and we can rebound the ball, playing with more pace and more space. I think that when we have the space that we need, we can see the gaps to get to the point of the paint, and then that's what kind of creates our chase and our actions and stuff. So, we've been doing a pretty good job of it. We had 30 assists in the Phoenix game and created so many. 40 catch-and-shoot threes is an enormous number. We were able to do that. We just didn't shoot it great. But just continuing to be better at those things, on the offensive end and just getting organized sooner, which will help our effectiveness.
Before Shaden started being bothered by the core last year, he had a crazy stretch, and I keep waiting for them to have that again. What's holding him back from getting back to that level of play?
He had that stretch he had was a really awesome stretch, but you always got to consider the fact that, we were so many players down, we were playing through him, he was shooting it all the time, Now we pretty much got all of our guys. His usage will be a little different. Even though I'm always telling him doesn't matter who's out there, just attack and play hard and get to the rack and do what you do. But he's such a selfless guy. He sees those guys out there and he's just they're open though. Let me just pass it to him, even though I might be able to get to the rack. I want him to start being a little bit more selfish, if you will, to get to that rack. And then if it's not available at the rack, you make the right play. But at least attack first, see what's there. And I think that right there alone, will help him out, But Shaden's still a very, very young player, and he had a good stretch here this year too. And he started seeing everybody's number one defender. He started seeing traps here and there, coverages and stuff that he's just not ready. He's not ready to see yet.
So does that speak to the drop in efficiency? Because it's one thing not to have the volume. It's one thing not to score 30. It's another thing to score 17, but you're shooting 33%.
Yeah, I think when you get in these teams, building their game plan around you, there's an adjustment that has to be made, and you have to start to get better at reading those things and negating those coverages. And that, I think, is kind of where Shaden's at. And the league kind of knows how dangerous he is when he can get going. So try not to let that happen,
You talk to him about this a lot? Have you had conversations where he's saying to you, damn, Coach, I've never seen that before?
Yeah. He does. He's saying it was a little easier earlier, And I said, yeah. Until you was averaging 28 a game, and so you start seeing different coverages and stuff. So we talk about it. We'll watch it. We'll talk about what to do in this situation. But then being out there is just a totally different thing.
I know this probably isn't too much of a concern with injuries, but is there anyone on the team that you feel like you'd like to get more minutes to, but you just can't necessarily seem to find them? To be honest, I always feel bad for Chris Murray and Roops.
because they're in a tough spot and they do every single thing I ask them to do. They're the perfect dudes. The way we want to play, offensively, they do it all perfect. And those are the guys that are a lot of times on the outside, of the rotation, just by way of, they're just so young and we got some experience out there and we got guys, So those guys, those are the guys that should be mad at me, to be honest with you, because they deserve to play and they do it all right. And I just try to keep encouraging them to keep doing that, keep doing the right things. I see it. I understand it's just the way of the NBA, the way of team sports. It just happens sometimes. And then, when we're healthy with all three of our centers, I'm always wishing that I could play Rob more. I'm even trying to find ways to play him with another center because he's such a game changer, So it's great problems to have, man. I haven't had those problems here since I've been here, So me navigating that as well is not easy. I'm adjusting to that as well.
With Chris and Rayon, has there been any talk of having them go down to the remix at all to get some reps, since they're not really in the rotation?
I haven't we haven't talked about it yet, because there's so many times like right now where there's so much practice time that you can get and there's so much experience that they can get, from this. So we haven't talked about it as much.
Back to the topic of three-point shooting, it's not necessarily back to the topic of three-point shooting. It's not a collective strength for this team right now, but it's so important in today's game. When you're coaching and game planning, how do you try to work that balance of getting enough threes, but still trying to get looks that you guys can make?
Yeah. Well, I mean, the thing is, you just try to create the threes. You try to create the catch and shoot threes. And then some nights we'll shoot the heck out of it, and some nights we won't. That's something that you can't control. So I'm more concerned with how we get our shots and where they come from. And whether we make them or not, we can't control that part. That's not something that I can control. So I'm more concerned with what happens, how we get to it, the type of shots we're shooting, the type of shots we settle for. That's the only things that I can really have a little control over,
Thanks, Coach.
All right.